every city basically was a star city. It had these stars around them, but they were all walled, but also cymatic shapes. These are the moats we're told, right? Because we're all taught that castles and, you know, were these square buildings with a moat. But when we can see them from above, there's these intricate cymatic patterns, and clearly you can see why we call them star forts, because they look like stars.
So here's one in Portugal, one of the star forts, the huge amount of terraforming around it. Amazingly, this one is still in pretty much pristine condition compared to the destruction of most of the ones you find today.
Piano notes. As you can see, these are all cymatic. A sharp, B, C, and they're all these cymatic shapes. These are cathedral windows, this line here. These are, you know, rose windows, are all in cathedrals, and these are cymatic patterns, which are created through frequency, so either harmonics or intention. Down here we have, this is our DNA, so these are fractals or cymatic patterns of our DNA. This is what we get when it's good intention. We get these perfect, you know, geometrical shapes, and when it's bad intention, we get this goop. So this is like a polluted river, and this is like a clean river. And so if we tie this back to the cathedrals that have got these windows, and they're connected to the ether with all these spires, and then what else do we have in cathedrals but these things called organs, right? I mean, we have these things called organs in our body, and we just, the DNA, you know, cymatic is the same as some frequencies in these windows. So what this is all looking like is these are you know, healing factories, or not even healing, wellness, I guess, just to keep people well. They're pumping out frequencies.
You can literally Google any city of the old world from the 1600s and back, and it will come up in these star fort shapes, and every single one is like Venice, and there's canals everywhere. Those were the highways of the time, but they were also so much more, with all of like this hidden technology, infrastructure, and buried history.
And you can see this one again, always these big cathedrals in the cities, but here's one of the stars, right, or batteries attached into the wall. And there's even another one of these more sort of irregular shaped ones out here, but they always have these stars attached, you know, to these star cities. And again, the canals, and you know, you can see this is a big island kind of thing as well. But the thing is with water's free energy. You know, you float a boat, you use the current, right? The current.
How about the water wheel? What are water wheels? Water wheels are harnessing electrical power. Electricity just as much as it was the physical power and mechanical power that they used out of it. What's to say that windmills and water wheels weren't actually generating hydroelectric and wind power a few 500 years ago?
This is a drawing. This is New York City, right? Battery Park is because this is what was there, a battery.
And we are live.
We are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Another amazing edition of Autodidactic Alchemist, where you must think for yourself and do experiments in the lab.
Indeed, exactly, with the real science. Another series that I run with Zertis and Jeremiah and the APEC community. And the beautiful thing is that what was once fringe science, but in reality was higher dimensional science, physics, as well as metaphysics and spiritual side of sciences, that whole community is now connecting with the alternative history community and the reality of these past ancient high societies. And yeah, it was me, and always late, but it's always on time. It happens when it's meant to happen, because we're just getting ready, putting together all the epic material that we have for you beautiful souls here today to cover such things as these pyramids, which the mainstream tries to convince us that, for instance, Chichen Itza here is just built with no thought at all that the people were somehow primitive, and they just were miraculously able to construct this engineering marvel feat that perfectly it magnifies and projects back your sound that you make and shoot at it from the middle louder and precise, like you feel it. It's crazy. It just the acoustic properties of this thing, and then the alignments with the astrological points and the solstices and equinox, to the point where the stairs on the solstices, when the sun's rising, or sorry, when the sun's setting each solstice, it brings those stairs to life, where it's a literal moving dragon that appears from it. I haven't seen anyone in our modern day build any architecture that comes even close to that technical advanced just properties and features. Like, it's mind-blowing. And that,
thank you, Dave, for your double donation support of us. Thank you.
Greatly appreciated, Dave, for your continued support, Dave's Waffle House. For the grift, we appreciate it every time.
And Dave does have a channel too, so go and check him out, Dave's Waffle House at YouTube.
Also, make sure to go eat at Dave's Waffle House, as I'm sure those waffles are probably delicious.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I was supposed to do as well. Clear the air.
A bang.
Oh, did you hear the bang?
Exactly.
All right, we've got frequencies going everywhere, and we are talking about oh gosh, there's lots and lots of comments here. We are talking about frequency today and how everything was tied in. And I mean, what spins me out about that pyramid is it's it's an upside down cone, right? So how does it reflect sound back? That means that all the sides must be angled slightly off-center, doesn't it? Is that right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the geometry of it has to have these nano features of canceling out specific directions of the sonic waves, and then simultaneously reflecting and projecting, magnifying back other directions of that same acoustic cymatic wave into this bubbled, concentrated energy.
And I mean, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's got the serpent coming down the steps, like the serpent descending maybe from the heavens, the sky, and then it's got this sonic boom, right? It's almost like a physical representation of some kind of plasma reset explosion thing. Right,
and that this had to be a leftover higher tech, like civilization, to make it. And Teotihuacan, what this pyramid complex is called, around Mexico City, and the main pyramid of the sun here that we see, it actually, there's many photos of it looking like this in the early 1900s, where it was covered when they found it. And then there's also the stories that before that, when the Spanish first came, that it was completely covered in mica and gold, and that they removed those layers first. And mica is a semiconductive layer of crystalline energy, electrical material, and then gold foil is the highest electrical rated metal you have. So that's literal layers of electromagnetic engineering that were put on it, and then abandoned to look like this as just a hill, a simple mound, not a pyramid of advanced technology. There you go. You got it.
And she is covered up in dirt. You can kind of see it's a pyramid. But this is also what we see in China at the moment. But they've actually planted trees and stuff all over them. But all the pyramids, all of them, in South America especially, they were all found like this. They were all buried. And that other picture you showed with all the smaller pyramids, if you want to bring, it's interesting that the small pyramids. Oh, do you know that you're on mute?
Sorry about that.
That last picture, have you got that? The one with the other one, that one. See the small. See how they've got the tops on them, and you can. It looks like there's been something sitting on top of them, right? That's been removed.
Yeah, the capstones are gone 100%.
Well, I don't think they're pyramids. I mean, remember with Luke, we saw, well, they were on pyramids in Nubia, and they had big statues on the top of them. Like they didn't have a capstone. They had a flat top with a big statue. I'm wondering if they're the same, because that's what they look like.
What's on top of the Grand Canyon temples and pyramids, they still have these white layer of what looks like what would have been some figures. Ooh, there we go.
That right one, yeah.
Exactly. That they.
So I mean, everyone's been looking for this capstone for a while. Was there even ever a capstone, or was it was it like a sculpture, which would, because all these sculptures that are pointing to the sky, everyone says, oh, that's to look up or to say that God's in heaven or something. Maybe it's because they're antennas. And that's how you get the statue to the tallest point, is you point its arm in the sky, right? And you put some metal inside it and it's an antenna. So this is the thing, all this stuff, because we know that, all this, the old statues that we're told are chiseled from marble, they're all poured. We know this because they don't have the veins in them. So they could be poured around metals and they could literally be antennas, right? All this stuff at the World's Fair. Imagine if they were all antennas, all those statues drawing down energy.
And especially the monoliths and the monoliths. The obelisks. Obelisks. There we go. That's the word.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine what things like the Colossus at Rhodes and the Statue of Liberty would be. They're just bigger size, right?
Exactly, and especially like this Statue of Liberty that's cast out of brass, copper, and iron and stuff, right? Like,
and I mean, I don't know. What do you reckon about that story that they built it in France, put it in the ocean, and towed it from Europe to America? That's the story,
right?
How did it float if it's metal and it's not hollow, it's not sealed? Like, I think that's a dumb story. I've never looked into it, but it doesn't.
And they claim the same with like the obelisks that they took from Egypt to Europe, and like they're just too massive. They weigh too much. Like it. Yeah. I've never.
And the thing is, remember, there's that World's Fair from France where they had a Statue of Liberty, but you see the arm and the head. Maybe that's the only reason they've made that connection. They've destroyed one and they're going, oh shit, people saw the photos. Let's just say they sent it to America and it was the same one.
Yeah, right. Good point.
It's the kind of thing they do.
And yeah, definitely have to look into that a bit. Like if they claim it was pre-assembled too before going down, as opposed to like being disassembled and then shipped, that's more believable. But it's like if they shipped it one piece pre-built, then
that's the sort. Let me check while you talk to. I've got to double check, but that's what I was told years and years ago.
A very strange thing, and like these, what are pyramids underneath the mounds that now exist, the mounds in the mountains that no relation. They just magically made identical structures that are massive terraforming on a gigantic, humongous macro scale everywhere around the world at a time that supposedly we weren't arranged as a society, not developed, not technologically advanced or utilizing, all slave labor too, they try to claim. And nobody is making, or very few elite corporations and government state actors construct or do large macro scale building in today's world comparatively to the amount and the size of what the remnants of the past are, that they just, it doesn't add up. It's impossible what they try to claim. And the more we dig in and under, we realize that the legends of all of the locals that claim that the gods or demigods or giants or people from the past were what built these mountains, these hills, these pyramids, and that's what still lies underneath. And for instance, this is in Indonesia, and it's now confirmed one of the pyramids of Indonesia. Both Graham Hancock's work into it, as well as the Ferrum Foundation, also verifying and doing the geoglyphs to these same pyramids or mountain pyramids in Indonesia. And you can see the terraces all the way from the bottom to the very top of it, which is already this man-made infrastructure on them. And the locals always had the legends that they are pyramids, and they're finally being verified by actual science that is indeed the case.
That's an interesting, that one, because they've dug into it and it's full of basalt, right? Basalt logs, which...
this one, not... you're thinking of Guan Pond...
Oh, no. Is that a different one, is it? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, not Guan... it'll come to me. But yeah, it's close by the other one that Graham Hancock went to.
I'm just thinking, because, I mean, that's what a giant tree produces, right?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if it's the base of a giant tree, maybe, that just happens to have that shape, or if the pyramid was built over the base of the tree, or
they chop down the giant trees to build the pyramids?
To build the pyramids,
right? Another possibility. This one, I believe, is in Micronesia somewhere, or Thailand, one or the other. Looks pretty similar to what we see in South America and Central America. That's what Egypt is going to build in Cairo going forward, right by Giza, by one of these. And you see this entrance here. Was this a megalithic addition that was done after the original pyramid culture built the was wiped out by catastrophe, and then the remainers doing what they can? Just want to highlight that there's a lot of these AI generated images going around, and that this is most likely CGI and artificial image.
Look at the hands and the faces. AI, literally, you can search AI hands and it shows you it can't draw hands, and it puts 6 fingers on them all the time, and they're always weird. So lots of people trying to muddy the waters, and even people just doing stuff to get, to make money, right, to get views. They're making up all this stuff.
Exactly, the views, and that what the artist or creator's intentions and original use of the images and as artwork potentially has no relation to then what other people then reuse, reclaim it for, and spread the fake news, fake fraudulent claims about them for the views.
Oh yeah, These now, I haven't seen this one before. Is this India as well, or is this Indonesia?
This is in, I believe, in India.
It is, yeah.
It's one of the rock cuts,
Rock,
or
yeah.
what they claim is rock cut out temples.
Yeah.
But
and they literally claim that it was carved, but in reverse. They started from the top and they carved down.
Right, like just
Can you tell me how that's impossible?
So impossible, and that one mistake would ruin everything. Like it, from people that they claim like weren't even able to do math or make blueprints for it or measurements. It's absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. The official story and cognitive dissonance.
Someone riding a bicycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe this one is either from Thailand or from Mexico. There's a couple in each that they found now.
It actually looks like a motorbike, doesn't it? Looks like it's got a motor in it.
Right? Could be. And then, of course,
and again, see how they're all flat topped. I mean, all the pyramids are flat topped, and of course, and ziggurats, right? So I'm wondering, you know, I mean, so everyone talks about, you know, the missing capstone of the Great Pyramid of, you know, in Giza, but what about all the other pyramids? There's got to be capstones everywhere, right? Did someone come down and go on a capstone stealing spree, or, you know, maybe they were never capstones, right? Maybe they were either flat topped or they were flat topped because they were pedestals,
or that there was another purpose and use that has been erased and destroyed from their original society and purpose and civilization, right? Like,
well,
if they
just
generate
the shape, if they had an antenna on top, it would draw energy down into the ground, right? It would.
And both ways, from the sky into the ground and from the ground into the sky.
It would create a spiral inside, of like a vortex. Yeah. Oh, so this is Mount Narut. Is this right?
Mount.
Narut, Natru. Oh, what is it?
Mount, Nace. You got it in Turkey there, and
Narut.
And they claim it's they state straight up that locally it's a pyramid on top of the mountain, although officially not recognized, but that's looking 100% pyramidal. And then this crazy massive temple, titans, and megalithic ruins on right next to it. Like, where's the LiDAR of...
Yeah, man. Oh, we've got to get a LiDAR.
The LiDAR of this.
And it looks like have they rebuilt that, have they? Because it didn't used to look like that.
Some of these, most
it used
likely,
to be a lot more smashed up. It looks like they've put it back, you know.
Right, or this, either that or this could be on the other side, but quite probable they did their restorations, because it looks like there's a museum visitor center here, right? So
of course. And how similar is it to Egyptian? It's kind of half Egyptian, half kind of Babylonian, isn't it? It's kind of like that.
Right? Exactly, in between. And all these elongated hats.
The Phrygian hats, yeah. Cone heads, man. Bunch of cone heads, I tell you.
Looks like it.
These
are in Peru. These are mud brick, or what are claimed to be mud brick mass pyramids in the deserts of southern Peru that were also destroyed, claimed mass, or like 500 or 1,000 of them were in this valley that got wiped out by the conquistadors and the Jesuit settler conquerors when they flooded it, supposedly trying to get to the golden treasures of the centers. And these are just a few of the ones that still remain.
I mean, they don't look like, they look like pyramids, but they're obviously full of, they're empty, right? They're full of rooms and corridors and stuff.
Exactly, right? They look like apartment
Like,
buildings.
like an apartment building. But it's, yeah. I mean, I wonder if they were, right? Just a big city in a pyramid.
Quite possible. Most likely, actually. Some of the polygonal geopolymer megalithic blocks of the Andes in Peru and Bolivia. And yeah, they're just
not chiseled.
this
Just in
is
case it's still on that
pretty
page.
close. Same country as the mud brick ones. So they claim the mud brick ones are officially 6,000 to 7,000 years old. Then how old are these exponentially more advanced? And yeah, just
you can see the size of them down there. And
another one of Chichen Itza that has the moving shadow snake, as well as the Caesar sound acoustic properties in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, which I have been to this place.
So I wonder if other pyramids have those acoustic properties, because that's sort of set out in that causeway, right, with a few other pyramids around it, and those.
Yeah, exactly. The other structures, the walls and stuff that they have built there. It's very.
So you could imagine them holding ceremonies outside in front of that pyramid and echoing and reverberating the frequency all around, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, right. And is that why they leave so many of them buried? And just
right. Because dirt's a dampener, right?
Yeah, and completely distorts the geometry and
the geometry takes away all the acoustic properties.
Just claim, hey, it's just a dirt mound made by dirt people that were nothing. Don't worry about it. It's not super advanced, containing chambers and energetical properties. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. And where's this one?
This is also Peru. I believe it's either right next to or part of the really famous one in the mountain.
Machu Picchu.
There you go, Machu Picchu. It's actually more likely another one that's about, I think, 200 or 300 kilometers in the Andes down Peru, further south. That's even more impressive. And the terrace all the way to the top, that these are already 10 to 15,000 feet mountaintops that they are megalithically terracing on a very massive scale for agricultural and use and living that aren't even used or settled today. They're just ruins. And, humans today have a very difficult time of building and developing and inhabiting these high altitudes. Yet this crazy advanced infrastructure is left there, and that there's several locations throughout Peru besides. You said it and I forgot it again. Like every time I go live, I can say the name of the place, Machu Picchu. Anyways, it's so impressive and like insane, mind-boggling, awe-inspiring ruins and architecture and development and building that when you see it, it's hard to believe. And just the cognitive dissonance of mainstream society, people, and thinking that these places are tourist places. There's millions of visitors a year, and that 99% of the people going there believe these official stories, being like, oh, it was just peasant, no developed tribal
Yeah.
Ah,
They just don't question it. It's just crazy, isn't it? And welcome, Judith, new member to Autodidactic. Thank you very much. And I will be actually doing, once I get settled in my new off-grid place, some like live streams for members and all those who donate. And I've got to work out how to do it all, but that is coming.
absolutely.
But yeah, this is the thing. People will just believe what they, people argue for their limitations, right? And I think people are just lazy. They'd rather just listen to an expert than actually do some research themselves and a bit of thinking, because it doesn't take a lot of thinking to work out that the story we're given just does not add up. I mean, I worked this out, with the South American stuff when I was, 14 or something, 15. I'm like looking at it going, what the hell? No, come on, this story is crazy. What the hell is that? Oh, is that half buried?
Yeah, this one is still half buried. It's either in Honduras, Ecuador, or somewhere in Central America or the tip of South America. These are scattered all throughout there. And then they've also now started it with the satellite imagery from space throughout the entire Amazon basin, like Brazil.
Wow.
The jungles have reclaimed all thousands of cities.
And Emily wants to run up that whole staircase so that she can do a Rocky at the top. So she's taking donations for her flights. Let's get her there. We want film of it though, Emily. You'll have to TikTok it. Have you seen those TikToks now? There's two people now. There's a pyramid around this area in South America, and you're not allowed to climb it. And one girl, did you see it like about a month ago? Some TikToker climbed up it literally to film herself TikToking and dancing.
I don't
and there was like a couple of hundred people there, and they just lost it. And when she got down, they were just throwing water at her and yelling at her. And some other guy did it a few days ago. And when he got down, someone had this really big stick, and they just went smack and cracked him in the head with it. So don't run up the pyramids. You're not allowed to, guys. If you're allowed to, please do your best, Rocky. But I would suggest finding a short staircase myself.
Right,
unless you're
respecting the runes and the past and the history, so they can be decoded and shared with further generations to come, not destroyed and added to the reset.
No TikToking, man. Don't black goo the past.
Right? Don't turn it to rubble. And here's another mountain pyramid. I believe this is in Europe somewhere, maybe Italy or France, that they're literally everywhere. And that a lot of the times they're called on the maps Pyramid Mountain. But no, it's the pyramid that's the size of a mountain that has been covered by ages of growth and decay and original mud flood, that layered and buried it to begin with.
So, I mean, it's puts another layer on the mud flood, doesn't it? Because, they're fairly tall structures. So you've got to think if they're completely covered, and we're thinking, you wouldn't think an inundation would do that. One, because it would have to be very high, but it would come from a direction, right? So you'd get you wouldn't get it covered, evenly. I mean, so what are we looking at there? Are we looking at volcanic explosions and a lot of stuff falling? Because it kind of looks like it's been covered from above.
The thing is that the civilization that would have built these grand pyramids would have been from the time of what we call Atlantis, the Younger Dryas period. The massive pyramid building people were of at least 10, 12,000 years ago, like at least one half of that grand cyclical cycle, that as opposed to the most recent Tartarian reset or whatever happened 1500s and whatnot, or 400 years, whenever it was. But this grand one, and that's where there is the original flood and like mud left over from the Noahide flood or the comet hitting, whatever it was, and then you have this thousands of years of actual growth and decay and soil forming and whatnot on a lot of these mountain
Well,
ranges.
vegetation, I guess, breaks down and all that. Just depends how old they are. And welcome, Hippie Shake. And someone just mentioned Toblerone, so no doubt Sherry Ives will turn up any minute. Someone's spoken about chocolate.
Right.
But this is,
from a dream.
we don't know how old these are, and it's like that one you showed that was still half buried. It was covered in vegetation, right? So that's the thing. A lot of this could be vegetation that's fallen over and rotted down, and because clearly they haven't been used in a while, right? Like they've been mountains for God, I don't know, at least 400 or 500 years, and so, probably before, because 400 or 500 years is pretty much when they discovered the metal, when the parasites got to America. So how long have they been covered?
Yeah, and I predict that it would have been one half cycle of
the cycle.
The cyclical cycle of the stars, or the wobble, or however you want to call it.
I mean, if we're looking at cycles as far as like yugas and sort of golden age, silver age, bronze age, all that kind of thing, if this was all working tech and all part of the Earth grid and all connected, then because we're in a down cycle, we clearly, you can't have all this free tech and free energy stuff and access to the ether when you're in an age of slavery, right?
Decline and decay, right? And
so it's been covered up, so it can't be used. But now we're at the point where we're entering a new age, which is more about the ether and about enlightenment, and so it's all being revealed again.
Exactly, the age of a new age of back into enlightenment and rediscovering the past, the history, who we are, and what we are. And so this is another one of the Indonesian pyramids. You can also see all those layers of the terraces on them, and also this pyramid is another one that is in the Ferrum Foundation's geoglyphology studies and decoding. I believe this is the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. And you can see also it looks like it's almost identical to the Grand Canyon style of being buried, inundated by what looks like a flood that reached this level here and then would have receded, and then 10,000 or thousands, however long it was, since like Noah's flood or the end of what is called the last ice age or the time of Atlantis, that all of that, then years of blowing sands and desertion, because if it was a giant tsunami that covered went across the land, continents, and masses, that salt would have then poisoned the ground from crops and vegetation, and that would make perfect sense why like Australia, why the top of Africa, and then like the Grand Canyon areas, everywhere where it showed that there used to be jungles, rivers, and civilization, or these inner lakes and oceans or whatnot, that whatever the catastrophe was that happened and wiped everything out, then it's poison left it dead and has then eroded naturally. The actual erosion process over that time, and giving what looks like a complete natural process to the minds of modern geology and archaeology, instead of seeing the base for the man-made or civilized made technological foundations and superstructures below. And like
it was made quickly, not over millions of years.
Yeah, and like, oh, they call this tombs, or was this just apartment buildings that got flooded, so everybody's dead and dying in there, and that's why all of their stuff and them dead in there? Could be.
Yeah,
And
right.
then the time afterwards, then the pharaohs that were mummified or whatnot then used these already pre-existing structures and facilities as their burial locations and filled them in, so that you have several epochs of civilization and settlement within it, and then they're only giving recognition to the most recent activities.
Yeah, yeah. We're definitely looking at many different ages and different sizes of beings, and different effects on the landscape, I guess you would say. Like it's not all one thing. That we're not looking at one event that's changed. It's an event on event on event, really. Reset world.
And then, like, so the Taj Mahal here, that this would be either left over and then rebuilt by the inheritors and survivors of that time, or it's the remaining civilization's highest point during the decline after catastrophism, sort of thing. And it's.
I mean, look at the size of it. It's massive. But I mean, look at the pillars, man. I'm just looking at them, and they're lighthouses. I mean, tell me they're not lighthouses.
They are.
They're not identical to what we're told are lighthouses. So again, what are these lighthouses? But I think clearly, and we see this in the old books. Those old exploring books, that some places got wiped out and really trashed. Some places didn't get hit at all. Some some places got, mildly hit. So I think these, places like this and these, because there's only, there's only so many buildings that we're, told about, right? And the Seven Wonders and all this kind of stuff. But clearly, they're just the remainder. I think they're just the surviving buildings, right? That are put up there as
exactly.
Hang on, keep talking. I think I hear someone knocking on my door.
Okay. And right, so leftovers from the former grand civilization all around the realm, and that's why they look identical no matter where you find them. This Roman, Greek, or Renaissance, or they're trying to pay homage to it. What it's inspired by? No, they're remnants from the same original builders and civilization. Like like look at the size of the people here, and then even the way, like it's not a giant scale.
It's that last one you showed, the people just like of that arch, they're just tiny. They're just tiny. I've actually got a picture in here somewhere of, I think it's in France, of giants that are, hang on, where is it?
And then, St. Basil's Cathedral, is that what that is? The one in...
no, it's this one. So,
is that the one
that's the Vatican?
What do you got there?
And then this is right in by the Nile here, that there are these little sphinxes everywhere. I believe this guy was by the Colossal of Colossus or whatnot.
But they've got, like big, like boulevards, is that what they're called? Like lined with them. But I'll show you this picture.
Second.
This is, this, did that share properly? 1 minute. You can see that, So this picture is, I'm pretty sure it's in France, but this is obviously one of these gates, right? Now, you can see that the height of this pedestal is, you know, just a little bit above this guy's head. Here's another one, and again, just a little bit above this guy's head, right? So that's how tall they were. So if we go to the next picture, this is it, a photo, right, in modern times. You can see this guy, he's not right next to it, but you can see he's quite a bit shorter. His head ain't up here, right? And this next one, again, this is the same one. You can see how small these people are. This is the altar up here, like basically the height of the fence, right? So twice the size. These people are twice the size. And this is, you know, look at the dress. This is what, 1600s? So, you know, what happened, right? And everyone's saying, well, why are these buildings so big? Well, it's, you know, and even in this, look how wrecked the world is.
They're ruined, right? Like, look, there's
it's all ruined.
on it. They're buried. Yeah. These aren't the people that built these things. Like,
no, these are just not too long after the deluge. I mean, look at it; it's just all smashed up, and they just reclaiming it, I guess, trying to see what they can use. So it's just crazy,
right? And like the Colossus, like all the statues are just they're giant, like. This door, the gate, and how deep further probably does it go down even, and those weren't the people that built it or first inhabited it.
No, and this is the thing, when people try and get into it and try and go, oh no, they did, and they try and explain it, they conveniently leave out all the geometry, all the, you know, all the other bits, like all the acoustics, all the plumbing. They never want to talk about the plumbing systems and the water systems and all these things that are, they just want to talk about bricks and, oh no, like if we had this many people, we could put up that shape. But that these buildings are so much more than that, you know. I mean, just to, I can't even imagine how they would start designing these things.
Right.
I mean,
look at the
machines.
Fountain. It's the underground pipe works, the hydraulics, like it's just.
And just for what? Just to make it look awesome. I mean, clearly it had other functions, but they didn't have to go to that extent, did they? They did it because they could, and they could do it easily, clearly, because they reproduced it right across the realm. So it wasn't hard for them to do.
And that they claim that they could make these super advanced fountains of several different layers of water, piping, and pressures and all of that, and plumbing. But yeah, plumbing, there we go. That's the proper term. They could do that advanced plumbing, but they couldn't do indoor plumbing for toilets. Like,
yeah, I know,
fountains are more advanced engineering and plumbing than an indoor toilet. So it's backwards. It's impossible. It doesn't make sense. People would not be focusing on making this super advanced fountain for the looks of it while having to poop in buckets and then dump that poop bucket in front of their house on the main street because there was no plumbing at all. Like, no, you're not living in your feces and then going to build a more advanced decorative water feature for looking at and no practical usage.
Yeah,
it doesn't better your standard of living every day.
It's so dumb, isn't it? Like, it's such a dichotomy. Like, half of it is this amazing beauty and art and, you know, function and form, and then the other side is, yeah, but all the people who did that, they were just living in the dirt, living in their own crap. You know, you get these stories of they didn't know how to cook, so they'd have a pot and they'd never empty it, and they'd just keep adding to it, and they'd end up eating stuff that was months on. I mean, just these stupid stories. And so we're just told that these dumb people could build all this. And the thing is, you know, I don't know, it probably was us, right? Another version of us. And we've just been dumbed down. We can still do this, but we've been taught all this stuff doesn't exist. Imagine if we were taught from the age of 5 about, you know, fields and electromagnetics and about geometry and sacred geometry and frequencies and all this, and that's how we saw the world. We'd understand this. We'd be able to build it, but we're taught brutalism, right? We just taught the stupid crap and to ignore anything that's magical.
And, right, so like exactly, it doesn't add up at all, and it's inheritors. There's just no other way of it. And like, oh, they couldn't see from above, yet they were able to just, make these beyond intricate geometries that now the Ferrum Foundation and Geoglyphs shows that the center point actually is the mapping out on the entire scale of the different places and landmarks around the world.
Those lines out, and they'll hit another
landmark,
energy point somewhere, yeah,
or city or island or coastline. All of the stuff
and this is the thing that was all done right with two dudes and a piece of string, man, and they got it perfect.
And that this is in case that, for instance, these old city geoglyph mapping and geoglyphology is a remnant from the pyramid building civilization as well, and that Fairham's geoglyphology and measuring of each of the side angles of the pyramids and their creases, and that those are also geoglyphs and part of the purpose of the actual engineering behind them, that these civilizations have passed on the knowledge and the secret history and usage of these higher ancient advanced practices.
And you can see, right, an obelisk in the desert there next to some old, ruin.
Buried ruin, right?
So you can understand why they have to make up all these stories that, oh no, this obelisk came from Egypt and this, because that's the same structure in the desert next to a ruined building that we find inside, so-called modern cities. And if they didn't say, oh no, well, this came from some other place, then, people would work out, hang on, maybe these are ruins of things that look like our modern cities, right? Because that's what they are. They've just been destroyed. They've got so many of the components that we see in all of our cities.
I will have to check where I saved this one from. The details are on my Pinterest. I will have to get back to you, Flat Fat.
Oh, Pinterest.
Sorry. Pinterest. It's
Pinterest is a good place to save your pictures, and then when your hard drive fails, you don't lose them all.
This one's interesting. I'm going to have to make sure of its authenticity, as that looks Oriental, not Egypt.
Those faces, I mean, that, chick looks like a dude, man, a bit. Also, hey, we've got man-made castles and different feature buildings everywhere that just they somehow also appear in the mountains of eroded ruins that look like they've been hit by a plasma catastrophe or eroded by mega tsunamis. And those aren't buildings or castles, but we're gonna just call it Castle Park. Exactly. I was going to say, how many of them are called Castle Rock or Tower Rock or something like that?
Right, and wow. So this is what they were able to do in and around the 1800s. Oh, we couldn't even dig it out. It was just found. And then they're claiming that people more primitive than them with less resources somehow built these things before that. It's just the cognitive dissonance and impossibility of the official claims, yet the evidence we are given are polar opposites.
And clearly they found that buried, right? And they had to dig it out in that but now they know exactly who built it, when it was built, how it was built. They know everything about it, but clearly they found it buried in the mud. I mean, it's just, come on. Talk about egos, man. These bloody experts, you should call them ego spurts, because that's all it is. They just want to pretend they're smarter than everyone and they understand when they clearly don't. Let's call them delusion perts because they're delusional.
All right, I like that. The penguins, as Sylvie calls them.
Penguins.
Quackademics. There we go.
Quackademics.
That's what I meant. So, like the two colossuses, and if you read the accounts of the Greeks that went and visited these originally, they all tell of stories of in the morning when the sun first hit them that they would sing and they would make these noises and actual tones out of them. And then also the further back in the Greek accounts you hear also that there was an eternal light on a couple of them as well that were removed at some point. And
interesting. I mean, and there's some of those that are still in good condition. Like there's actually a few of those pairs of, is it colossuses or colossi? I don't know. But remember, it was, what's his name? He's an engineer who was studying in
Robert
Egypt.
Schoch, maybe.
No, he was kind of part of that crew, and he no, and he got in and he did. Let me see if I can find it. He did like he basically scanned the faces of two colossus.
Yes, I know.
They are identical. Like they are identical. Like there's no way that they were carved. And what's his name? Let me find out. Hang on.
It's on the tip of my tongue. Dunn. Yes,
Dunn. Christopher Dunn.
Christopher Dunn. Thank you. Yeah. Know it. 100%. Yeah, and like that, they're absolute perfect symmetry. One half side of the face to the other, and that one face to the other face, both all identical. And it's like exactly, Marcel, 3D printed. Like that's the only way to claim that someone chiseled that accuracy by hand. It's like the statistic possibility is so impossible and ridiculous, and that they claim to be experts and just accept these impossibilities and preach them as absolute undeniable fact. It's
and yeah, see, this is one of the problems is, you know, they write a book and get promoted and that, and suddenly they're an expert, right? It's like, how does that work? But here's where are we? I'm gonna steal the screen. So this is one of the faces, and as you can see, they've done all the geometry and it's all, you know, perfect, you know, Vesica Pisces face. And down here they've done the measurements. You can see it, it's perfect symmetry. And there's two of these and they're both the same here, sort of a bit here. You can, like, they're literally identical from every different angle geometrically, but just done by people who, you know, couldn't tie their shoes, couldn't cook, and had a copper chisel, apparently. That's what they want us to believe. So there you go.
Right? Like, it just, the impossibilities. It's ridiculous. Depiction here of the lighthouse of Alexandria. And another one of the ancient wonders of the world that was just a legend, and then all of a sudden, they found Alexandria under in the Mediterranean, off the coast, and it's all true. And like, how did they have a lighthouse going in these times? It's another impossibility. It's all of these impossibilities.
And same with Troy, right? Troy was a myth and a legend, you know, until they found it.
Shout out to Rick Lambert. Rick Lambert here. I got an original interview with Rick Publishing in 4 days' time, and we go deep into his toroidal vortex coil designs, and Rick's this episode that is finally premiering and going public for the first time. It was my first ever Zoom interview I recorded as the interviewee, and it was my fourth ever interview, period. And it was Rick's disclosure and story and designs that got both the Science of Sound series going that we do, and also inspired the Year of the Coil series that we do.
Wow.
And
There you go.
bless your heart, Rick, and prayers with you that your health recovery continues, good sir.
Oh, yes, sending healing energies. And we're also going to be talking to Cultivate Elevate, Matt from Cultivate Elevate, about electroculture. So we're just working out times because we're all in different continents. So that'll be coming up this week sometime. And what's going on? Hello, Callum. How you doing?
All right,
Thank
Petra
you, everyone,
here.
for being here.
Like Petra looks an awful lot like the Grand Canyon as well, right? Like that red sandstone supposed layer that they claim is red sandstone formed through sedimentary. It's ridiculous. It's like
How is it? They don't even know. They just kind of say, oh, well, I don't know. The ground got hard and kind of rose up above the ground, and then it was a rock, and then
sand, some degraded sand and leaves just turned into rock, but it's very weak stuff. But then they built caves out of it, but the caves didn't collapse, and this very delicate sandstone that these carvings are thousands of years old. They haven't eroded at all either, like.
Yeah, no, exactly right. All the cliffs have. That's erosion, right? That's geology. But yeah, it liked the architecture, so it left it. It didn't touch it. Very nice.
And right, like, then people claim, oh, well, there was no moisture, no rain. Well, there's the sand and wind erosion from the wind blowing that quartz crystallite sand, which is almost even more powerful than water.
Look where that is. I mean, literally, that wind coming through there would create a vortex. It would spin and it would hit the front of that it would be hitting. It'd be sandblasting it, basically. It'd be sandblasting. And
exactly.
And it's not worn away at all. But this is, what geology wants us to believe is how the whole realm was made. Literally bits of sand blowing into things and carving them into different shapes. I mean, holy dooly. What the hell? Where's that?
So this, I believe, is in Burma, aka
what's it called now?
It will come to me.
Someone tell us in chat.
Always when you're live. Remember it. Say it a million times.
Up where the Uyghurs are and stuff. Burma is now
Myanmar. It came to me. There we go. Myanmar, Burma, same country. Just whether you are a local or if you are part of the CIA agents to destabilize this quote unquote communist dictatorship, but it's extremely like Buddhist spiritual, and like the monks, run a lot. Like, look at this.
You got to wonder why they're in there. It's a tiny country. It's insignificant as far as trade or war. It's not a threat to anyone, but they've been attacking that place for decades, killing off all the locals and everything. And
exactly, they want to go in and bomb it, just like they did to Cambodia and Vietnam and Korea, and Cambodia during the Vietnam
Korean
Wars.
What a scam that was.
The Valley of the Jars or whatnot, these giant megalithic jars and ruins, they drop more bombs on it than anywhere else, and it's crazy. And that these countries used to have all of these stupas and these pyramid things, these what are massive fractal ray antennas. Like it's blows my mind. And then there's a lot of them here in Burma too that still have the gold all the way up them.
Nice.
All the way through. I believe this is parts
that's the other thing about gold and silver, right? Especially gold. There's all this thing about gold's this amazing thing, right? And that's why it's so expensive. But we know that people used to have like silver tableware, right? Silver knives and forks, and it was because putting that in your mouth all the time, silver is good for you. Same with gold, right? They used to have gold rimmed cups and things like this. So is the reason that gold and silver is so expensive just so that we can't get hold of it to make cups and stuff out of? Because if we're all drinking out of gold and silver cups, we'd all be a lot healthier. Colloidal silver, right? There's colloidal gold as well. So, I mean, this is all economies, right? They just put the price up, so they put it out of our reach. But I can guarantee you, I mean, we know that all these, royal types, they use solid silver tableware. Angkor Wat, the Ankh, and the anchor, right? The anchor, which looks a lot like an Ankh.
Right, and like the Ankhs were probably resonating tools that activated or interacted with these macro archaeological buildings that had real application, purpose, and usage. They were machines on a macro scale. Like, look at this.
I mean, it's just, oh God. Like, it looks, from this distance too, like from that photo, it just looks like what you would see up on one of these satellite arrays, these big antenna array places. They're full of those. It's just an antenna. I mean.
Right, and a super advanced one too, by the looks of it.
Yeah, exactly. Better than what we can build, right?
This is a World War I photo, I believe, of the pyramids of Giza, and you can see even at this point they're still mostly not even dug out. Like, look at the corner of the big one. Like, they're still buried.
Mm.
And what is this huge structure going down into the Nile?
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, they still buried. Definitely still buried.
Buried, yeah. Oh, wow.
Buried everywhere. And these ones are part of what's now under the lake that...
okay. It's not... Is it Karnak they moved? Is that right?
Yeah, Karnak they moved, and then everything else that
Luke they left and it just went under. Nice.
That we've gone through, right? There's just...
I mean, Karnak, there's questions on if that's authentic as well. We just don't know. We don't know.
We really, really don't. Like, oh, okay, that's an Egypt granite statue.
Oh, okay.
Head.
Oh, it could be African. Kind of looks a bit Asian though, doesn't it?
Right? Like, just everywhere. Oh, okay, starting to dig it out, I guess. What's underneath there? That looks
look at it. It's just bits. It's in ruins, and now look at it. So they've clearly gone back. I mean, we know that they've put new tiles and stuff all over it, but they've literally half rebuilt it.
Massive facades, and what's this giant tablet that probably has a whole bunch of information on it that I don't think is there anymore.
Well, just cover that up. Don't need to read that.
And here we go. I'm not sure where this one is, but could literally be anywhere. Somewhere else on the Nile. And what this same shape you pointed out last time at the Sudanese pyramids.
Yes.
That they're the H block that we see up in Pumapunku in Peru, Bolivia.
So that could have had a pyramid behind it that was knocked over.
That as well, quite possibly. Look at how huge it is. The corresponding pyramid, if there was,
would be massive.
Abu Ghraib, or no,
and that's basalt, isn't it? That's heavy stuff, or it's either basalt or dark.
No, this granite. Oh yeah, it could be diorite, but I think it's granite. Not. Oh no, I think this is Aswan. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
how would you get those lintels up there? And why would you even try unless it was easy? This is the thing. It's like it's got to have been an easy thing for them to do. They wouldn't be doing it or ever if it was a hard thing to do. They clearly had tech that we didn't have.
Right, like the impracticalities of the official stories are just ridiculous. Okay, sorry, this is two different pictures. That's not a sphinx under. So I think this is the one that they moved, or
that's the one they moved. But what's that sphinx doing in front of it?
No, that's a separate picture.
Oh, it is a separate photo. God, okay, I was freaking out.
Is it?
What the hell? Yeah, you can see it's two photos. Yeah.
Right, that was a little misleading. So, but look at this. This is obviously during the reconstruction and digging out, but it's reconstructed.
Suddenly,
already.
it's got pores. It didn't have
still digging it out. Yet
yeah.
They've already rebuilt it. That block isn't here anymore, and they've sealed off any entrances at all for people to see.
Jeez, bloody quick, aren't they?
Truly are. And where do these stairs go up and behind?
Oh wow, yeah, right.
Where does this cave go? I believe this is a tablet that was found in America.
Oh, really?
And then, so the Egyptian hieroglyphs and reliefs, it's like they always have the blue deities, these essentially same demigod figures and lore that you also have on the opposite side in India and throughout East Asia.
Yeah, the blue gods, yeah, for sure. And then obviously Avatar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then that
is flying
guy.
Is
that right? Zoroastrian army?
Yeah, Zoroastrian. Yeah, you got it.
He's got his little wings in his hand there, doing something.
Right, controlling his flying device.
His little plane.
And the feathered wings, right? Like that's representation that he was in a flying craft. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what his craft looked like. It's just how they could depict it to describe that he was in the air and flying. And is this like Neuralink going up?
Everywhere.
Like,
is that what?
Is that like a Neuralink coming out of
Wi-Fi
temple?
Yeah,
right. And there's just this guy down here that don't worry about the gods and the regulars.
Crazy carvings, the way they carved in like that, aren't
they? Exactly, and this red sandstone again.
It's almost like, I wonder if they're the original and all that other stuff is a facade because they're sort of everything's popping out up there. But who knows? But definitely they're large compared to that little dude. Yeah.
And the hieroglyphs, the symbols, there's a whole deeper information and language technology within them that our current translations just don't do it any justice.
No, I mean, well, look at the icons we use on computers. They're hieroglyphs, pretty much.
Then we got some more blue-colored beings, and then you got your animal human being.
Yeah. Oh, is he the dog head, maybe?
Yeah, he's the dog head. Thoth, I believe, is the bird head. And then we have the Sphinx of Egypt after it's been refacaded.
Yeah.
And then this is one in, I believe, Pakistan.
Yeah.
That looks pretty close, similar to how they originally found this one. And it just hasn't had the restoration done.
It hasn't yet, and they swear black and blue. It's just a natural formation. Nothing to see here.
Like, is this a portal, an energy thing? Like, is that a satellite
Scarab
dish
beetle.
going up? Like, you know?
What does the scarab beetle represent? Something. Wow, man, look how eroded they are.
Right.
And so, like, this one, the former Colossus I showed, and then this one, the former one, you could see it was desert and dirt, where these ones are clearly in the farmland and closer to the river, so that most likely they're two separate locations, two separate sets of them at the very least, and there's probably hundreds of them around. Like that looks like energy descriptions and
Looks like a wonderful
power
thing.
in. You know, like, oh, you got to power in this device to your screen. Look, you're connecting the electricity to your television screen, and
old instruction manual, man, Egyptian style.
That looks like some bombs being dropped by a helicopter or a plane, maybe.
Yeah, doesn't it? Onto a submarine or something.
Yeah, submarines, flying cars. Who knows what all these different things are? Energy waves. Is that a grill or a solar panel here?
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like a tablet or something. I mean, yeah, there's a rebuild.
Yeah, this is the one that they moved with the flooding and the creation of the dam in Lake Nasser and the complete erasing of the waterfalls and the cities and pyramids that were below it that once again Luke has brought to our attention and shown the world.
Yeah.
They claim that they cut these down. Like, it's so preposterous and ridiculous.
It's a silly story.
Like, this looks like an operating manual, you know? Like, oh, this guy's at his desk working away. So is this guy right here working away. You know, this is what you're supposed to do to run it.
Exactly. That's what I think it all is. And even the stuff on the buildings, you know, most of it's been ripped off. But I think, yeah, it tells you what the building is, how to use it. You know, I mean, 'cause back in the old world, it wasn't like you had to pay and, you know, go and you could just go and use stuff, right? The Stone of the Pregnant Lady. I've always wondered why it's called the Stone of the Pregnant Lady, because it doesn't look like...
That's in Baalbek that you're talking about. This is the...
is that the broken one in Egypt?
Yeah, the abandoned, unfinished obelisk.
Now, how do they cut underneath that obelisk?
Yeah, when you see it, it's like they got the scoops, and it looks like some sort of like excavator or drilled out sort of thing on it.
Because that'd be a lot of work to free it from the base stone. But and copper chisels, I think. Copper chisels.
Right? Like, it's so ridiculous.
I bought you your pup, right?
Yeah. Where is the? Yeah, this is somewhere else, I believe, like a docking spot in Egypt. That's like
it's just geo.
They built the banks, the perfect canal landing spot for whatever this was. That's not modern. That's gotta be ancient.
Yeah, but I mean, it's very similar to the stuff that's standing and looking good in Greece and Italy and stuff, isn't it?
See, once again, this guy that they claim was the one that they moved, but he's so much smaller, and it's not near the river where the agriculture is.
It's not really high quality, that one. I mean, the chest looks like they've just put random stones in there, doesn't it?
Right?
Doesn't
Like,
even look like they're the right stones.
uh,
It looks like Thing from the Fantastic Four.
scams. And
Wow.
the underground everywhere.
Bloody
It's
grottos and all
here we
these.
go.
Like, oh God, look at that.
Just everywhere. And then the Sudanese.
Look at that there. He's got the H blocks. Yeah. Jeez, those pyramids didn't fare too well.
And like these look new. That not
They
so
do.
much buried. So how much further down
Well,
do they
They could
go?
be repurposed, you know. They could have been built for something and then turned into, you know, tombs or monuments or whatever. Are they salamanders?
Right? Maybe.
There's no water around. They definitely look aquatic, but there ain't no water in the, or not anymore.
Right? Like this is going into one of them. So okay, is that like mining shaft?
Yeah, it looks like it's some kind of track or shaft or
Clearly.
water, maybe a water channel even. Who knows?
Yeah. We would have seen erosion down. Well, you could fit it in with something else. So many possibilities. Definitely not what they tell us.
Not what they tell us.
Is. So, is that a person right here? Either way, that's like the height of a regular person. So that's double the height of a person. The door is 10 or 20 times the size, and why?
So if they've all got horns on their head with a sun disk, you know, I wonder if that's to say that that's the age of Taurus, which is 2 ages ago, isn't it?
Like, yeah, and how did they build this with nothing?
They had copper chisels. Come on, and they had Fred the horse and his cart.
And
and they had blue lotus flowers, so they could get really high and imagine all this stuff. You see.
And it's like, oh, look at this antenna up off of it, and then what's this orb ball thingy?
And what's the hat, man? How big is that dude's head?
Yeah.
And what's that other chick got on her head? Is that on her head?
It is.
That's a really big tuning fork hat. Must clear the air. Tune in. Oh, wow.
The step pyramid, right? And then, we just got a whole bunch of red sandstone and basalt granite megalithic building right next to it.
And again, you can see those columns. They're made of components and stacked on top of each other.
Yeah,
it's not It's not a big single column.
Exactly. And the bubbles, that's got to be geopolymer when it forms.
Yeah, exactly right.
And
you can see it's too smooth. There's no, there's no veins in it. It's just,
yeah. And then is this ruined building the control center for whatever these things were used for?
Yeah.
Oh, just a little corner of one of them.
And look at that old world canal light. See the steps going down? Yeah. We got photos of that kind of thing, in Holland today, right? And in Europe and that.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Everywhere.
It's just that some are in, worse states of disrepair than others. That's all it is.
And just for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10-story building perspective, and the pyramid is like way outside the city behind the city limits of Cairo.
Well, just the volume of, the volume of sandstone or, geopolymer that went into that is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, sorry. A bunch of hunter-gatherer, pretty much peasant farmer slaves did not build frustrates the mind when thinking about the cognitive dissonance that has to constantly exist in the mainstream, and especially like the teachers and the researchers and the actual career archaeologists that believe this official narrative that they tell themselves. It's like, no, like they you didn't build a monolith that is 50 times the size of a human and 10 or 30,000 or 100,000s of times more massive than humans for no reason whatsoever. It's just so impossible and ridiculous.
No, I mean, these experts, I'll sit there and they'll talk and, out their butts of all this crap and how they've deciphered language and how, it's just all this stuff that's really baseless crap. And you go, okay, so how'd they stand that, obelisk up? And they don't want to talk to you suddenly, right? It's like the World's Fairs. Oh, okay, so who built all the plumbing system and put the fountains in? They don't want to talk about that. They just want to go, no, but look, it is possible if you get enough people to put that many bricks together, just so that you can then knock it over in a year later. I mean,
right?
So it's great because the arguments against this are just starting to sound ridiculous. They're just really starting to sound like, I mean, are you serious?
Moronic, really, right? Like it's the narrative is falling.
You can't see that.
The more
I mean, I saw an interview with allegedly Dave, and he was talking to some very mainstream guy just trying to explain things, and it was just amazing. And all the chat were just so brain dead. Like, he'd say something that wasn't in the book, and they'd be going, but that's not in Wikipedia, and that's not in the book, and he's just like, no, you have to go to different sources, guys. You have to get different points of view, and they just couldn't grasp that concept. They're like, but there's a man, and he calls himself an expert, and so I just repeat what he says, and that makes me smart. No, that makes you a slave, a repeater.
Exactly. And like, once again, we have one of these massive pyramid structures and the infrastructure building that probably was operating next to it, right? Like power plant, potential power plant factory, quite possible. This is that pyramid mountain in Turkey.
Meru, is it? No, not Meru. Yeah, whatever. I just want to say, all tuning forks are not the same, Alchemist. Anything you're buying from a music shop, that's not going to do anything to your frequency of your body. That's tuned. They're for musical instruments. Most of them are tuned to 440. They need to be tuned to a correct frequency, like a solfeggio, 432s, whatever they are, or else they're completely useless. I went out and I bought some. Completely useless. They won't do anything. So you get what you pay for. It's like these buildings like we talk about. People want to say, oh, well, that's just a building, right? That's just a tuning fork. It's not. When you look into what went into creating that and to get it tuned properly in the right frequency, this is the buildings, then you understand that you've got to go for the quality. So if you do want to get tuning forks, for healing for yourself, you can go and buy cheap ones, but you'll find out that you've just wasted your money like I did. And you can get them for like 20. They're like $20. They're not much, but that's why they're $20, because they come from a factory in China and they're not tuned. There you go, rant over.
Not in resonance.
Not resonance, no. That's all frequency. It's like the cymatics. We've all seen cymatics. If you're like, 0.1 off the correct frequency, nothing. As soon as you hit that correct frequency, perfect geometry. That's what you need in a tuning fork, or else it's just going to create, the goop, right? The goopy stuff.
The goop, the shredding and the shattered frequency, as opposed to the harmonic, healthy, full frequency. Fractal and energy bubble.
And it's the same as, the bells, they were all tuned, the organs, the choirs, it's all the same thing.
Like this looks an awful lot like a stacked battery sort of thing. Like looks more like technology.
Especially, is that wrapped? That one looks like it's
Yeah, this
wrapped like
one's
some
three
kind of
coils.
coil.
Yeah. Three
Yeah.
ends.
Between the two poles. That's very interesting, isn't it?
It is. It is.
On J Dreamers, he's shown quite a few times on the old maps. There's actually 2 magnetic islands up on the old maps up at the North Pole, and they want to tell us there's only one magnetic point, but the old maps literally draw on either side of Hyperborea 2 poles, and that was like that picture, like the 2 poles, and then you have the middle bit, which would be the Mount Meru, the black rock.
Paul
So
made what the flock TVs on Mount Meru. Pretty good new video there, right? Like look at this, and it's often painted red, this circle here on Horus's head, and these 2 antennae, and then see that 2 Tesla coil things where it goes zap, zap, zap up,
yeah, you can imagine,
crazy
between
devices.
them. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
And then that all of what they're wearing is made out of gold. These different, that's electrical components essentially, transistors, processors, and silicon and quartz, the different gemstones they're using. It's technology.
And they used to even have gold thread, right? They used to literally thread gold in that through their clothes.
You got it.
So, and obviously jewelry, right? So this is what all this stuff is, crowns, it's all to do with frequency and the resonance of different metals and gemstones and all this kind of stuff. It's an actual science. I didn't realize that it was so, I've got coils and copper and stuff all over me, but they measure the length of the copper to the micrometer or something, and that gives it the frequency.
You got
it. And then it's attuned, it's a machine, right, basically, and then they can change it into, wrap it in different shapes and that, but it's got its resonant base frequency. So there's a difference, but just wearing just copper around your arm is good because it'll get copper into your system, but different to having a tuned, because I got tuned ones here on my arm, if you can see them up there, they're proper tuned ones. And then this one on my wrist is not tuned, so.
You're trying them out, you're experiencing them, and that we're just at the very beginnings of rediscovering this technology, where the ancients and the elites still, the monarchs and stuff, that are literally covered in these coil circular bracelets, devices, that you start to appreciate and understand what they actually have going on and they're doing there.
Look at all the royals. They come out covered in jewelry. They've got gemstones and gold and pearls sewn into their clothes, and all, they eat from silverware and all this stuff, and they keep it all from us, and we just think it's all for show, or what, to show that they're rich or something. Does that even make sense? It's just the whole story is just making less and less sense to me as I go along this path. It's all a silly show.
It is. And so what? Is this is depicting underground tunnels, the extremely massive giant sarcophagus, which they've actually found a few of those now on the Giza plateau underground in the caves, in some of the complexes, that confirm that this is definitely a real depiction of one of them. So then all of these different pyramids that are more of the Nubian style ones and absolutely giant, most likely are also real, because, well, that's not fantasy, so this isn't fantasy, and why would they be wasting their resources going over there and depicting imaginary false things instead of what's the grandeur of what's there? And once again, these 2 grander, larger pyramids that have been confirmed that were in the original Pharaoh's Lake. That was
And look
called
at the top of those. Yeah, they aren't flat tops with antenna statues on them or
King and
something.
Queen
They look
of-
like they've got holes on the top as well. And I don't think copper's toxic. I've never ever heard of anyone.
only
with
if it's
copper toxicity.
oxidized. Only when
Yeah,
it
if you
oxidizes
oxidize
and
and
turns
drink it,
blue.
if you make up a concoction and drink it, but as far as wearing it, you see, this is the thing. Where does all this information come from? Because I had a discussion with Eileen the other day in McCusick about mercury fillings, and there's this big thing. Oh, you need to get them out. They're toxic. They're so bad. And we just went, well, really? You know, do we hear about this? Do we hear about people being rushed to the doctor because of their mercury fillings? I mean, there are stories that they put out like, oh, this person had to get them taken out because they were getting headaches, but we don't even know if that's true, right? Mercury is an amplifier, right? When we were talking about it, she said that there was some cartoon and one of the people got a filling of mercury, and she said in the cartoon it turned into an aerial and went up, and he started getting all these signals. You know, so we've got to understand that where's any of this information coming from? It's not good to just repeat something because you heard it. You've got to look into it because people won't believe you. Like, there's no way in the world wearing a copper bracelet is going to hurt you. I'm covered in it. I've got them on my ankles, my wrists, my arm, and they've all been there for a couple of years. You know?
Wait, you're not poisoned.
I'm not poisoned. Well, who knows? I might be crazy. But this is the thing, you know, they love to tell us all this stuff, and the experts, oh, you can't do that, you can't do this. Really? Kids used to play with mercury in school. Kids used to break thermometers so they could see it run around their hands, but now it kills you. Questions.
There's just so much evidence everywhere of it nothing adding up to the official histories.
Nothing.
And
I think we're literally at the point, you know, it's like they say, whatever we're told, do the opposite. Because it's clear, it's literally just, they're telling you this, if we do the opposite of everything that they tell us, we'll be fine, right? I mean, seriously, if you eat the food if you eat the food they tell you not to eat, that's like fresh vegetables, right? You'll be healthy. If you use the medicine they tell you not to use, this is the thing, right? Now they're trying to convince people that fat is fit. I actually saw an article saying that running was bad for you. Like, this is seriously the kind of stuff that's coming out. So literally, I'd say whatever you hear from an expert, do the opposite. Do the opposite, man. And then at least you got half a chance.
right? Like, especially if it's like a government program or something like that. It's trying to pass those bills. It's like, okay, this is like the good health bill, and then you look into it, it's like, oh, you're putting uranium in our food today or something, you know. It's
oh, okay, you want to enrich all the cereal with iron, so you're putting iron filings in the cereal. Okay, that's literally what they do, by the way, guys. Iron filings, and they say it's enriched with iron, high in iron. You can't absorb iron filings. But the main thing is just Google, what are they called? Health ministers, and see what they look like. And if you want to take health advice from those people, good luck. Mad Hatter was mercury.
And this is a Chinese pyramid that you can see it's all megalithic block, and that, hey, it's that step pyramid. So clearly this is not a dirt mound. This is all stone, large megalithic stone.
So it's clearly to do more with the geometry than the building materials, because we see them built out of different materials.
The materials are probably very important, especially for like the advanced ones in the geopolymer, and that's in the mix of the geopolymer that they're including it all.
But clearly, like the mud, is that mud? But the mud ones are clearly still, because of the geometry, they're still doing something, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And the geometry is equally, if not more important. You're probably definitely right.
But when you start layering different rocks or whatever, different materials, then you get capacitors and all this kind of stuff happening. Oh, my sister here. Hang on.
Sorry, I thought I had muted myself. This image is what the LiDAR shows.
I shall be back in 1 minute.
Okay. No worries. Under the Bosnian period, this is what the Bosnian pyramid looks like under the mountain or under all of the layers of dirt that hasn't been exposed. No, that was the Bosnian pyramid. This one right here. Oh, now we're getting into golden tablets. All right, that is the end of that part, but I have something else preloaded while we are still on topic, and that is first a little bit of Michael Tellinger's stone circle work and all of the layers of terraces in South Africa, and the sound resonance that comes out of these stone layers, and all of it that I will be sharing right now. And then we will finish off with some questions as soon as Cambell is back.
Them together. And also notice that weird kind of spider's web effect that goes away from the circle. No stone circle stands alone, even though it might look on photographs that the stone circle is on its own. If you look carefully, you'll see the hidden spider's web effect or the channels that connected them to the other stone circles. You'll see those hidden beneath the soil around the circle. There you can see the channel at the top connecting the stone circles. You can see the extreme age and the erosion of these structures. Obviously, much destruction has been done by town planning, town development, farming, roadworks, and that's really mostly where the destruction happens. There are huge parts of South Africa where if you fly over in a helicopter or with a drone these days at sunrise or sunset, there are vast areas that you can actually see many of these structures hidden under the soil. But when the sun is at a very low angle, it shows it up beautifully. You realize that there are vast areas that are just simply covered by these stone structures, but we can't see them. They don't even stick out of the soil anymore. And these channels, you can see channels that cover entire mountains with these stone structures all connected to each other. There's another great example of a channel running over there into some weird hexagonal ruins and structures. Cluster of hexagonal cells. This is all not far from my house, actually. When we sit on the balcony at Stone Circle or at the Ubuntu office, that's what you look at. The mountains around us are covered in all these structures. That's why we are located there. And the other mystery is the vast number of agricultural terraces. 450,000 square kilometers and more of agricultural terraces. Keep in mind that all the history books tell us that Southern Africa was a sparsely populated part of the world. Apparently, nobody lived there. Until about 1,000 years ago, when the Bantu tribes eventually made it down to where they live today. Up to that time, nobody lived there. There was some bushmen, hunter-gatherers that used to roam around, but that was it. Well, the 450,000 square kilometers of agricultural terraces clearly tell us a different story. So who built those terraces, when they were built, when were they built, and what were they used for? Were they growing food? Were they doing something else? And how many people were they feeding? And what happened to all those people that they were feeding? These terraces cover entire mountains. When you start seeing them, you suddenly see them everywhere. And the Google Earth images give you a very interesting idea of how widely spread they are as well. Again, South Africa, Zimbabwe, there are parts of Zimbabwe that it's almost impossible not to see these terraces. It's unbelievable. Again, this is not far from my house. This is the entire side of the mountain is just covered in these, and it goes on until you eventually hit either forestry or some farms that have developed farming or so forth, and then it obviously disappears. And the other doors and entrances to these stone structures. And that obviously immediately excludes dwellings for people or dwellings for animals. So whenever you read in the, very, very naive history books that tell us that these are dwellings for migrating tribes or for their animals, this is clearly a very ill-researched author that put that down. This has got nothing to do for dwellings for animals or people. Archaeological drawings all the way from 1939 show us some of these clusters, these stone circles with no doors and entrances, and you can see how they're clustered together. In many areas, you can see some of these clusters, and often they're actually carved on rocks. Sometimes you see these carved on stones when you walk among the stone ruins. That's even that's truly boggled my mind. It's like, what came first? That they first carved the stuff out, and then they lay it out, or they first lay it out and somebody came and carved it on a rock as a sort of latecomer architect or town planner or somebody trying to document what they discovered there on a rock. It's just spectacular. And sometimes these stone circles are concentric circles with no doors and entrances. And then you start realizing that there's a lot more to this that meets the eye, and obviously they were used for some very specific purpose. The flagship, obviously, as you may know by now, is none other than Adam's calendar. Well, that name, just so that you know where the name comes from, when I first met Johann Heine in 2000, I opened it up, cleared it out, and found this tunnel that went into the darkness. And the tunnel was described to me to be paved all the way around underneath and paved all the way around, something like this. This is not the tunnel, but I found, so you can just imagine it. It wasn't, when they found it, it wouldn't have been beautifully backlit for a photo opportunity. So he says, when they found it, they walked in there and they're obviously very nervous because this is like, what the hell is this doing here? And and several meters into the darkness, they stumbled upon one of these, facing them in the dark. And he said, this man told me that they got such a fright, they just turned around and got out of there as quickly as they could. And they never, ever told anyone about this until he told me about this. And then 3 months later, he died. So I'm glad that I listened to the old man. Brings us to the question, what are the stone ruins all about? Are you guys tired? Do you want to, I'm not sure which of this I'm going to have to cut out, but I'm getting tired myself. But so I know it's much too long. It's already 9:20, so I'm going to about half an hour to go, and we'll be out of here. So,
hello, sorry about that. I have to jump. I have to go and have dinner with my parents before I jump across the country. So I'll let you all continue. Have an awesome time with Bernie, and I'll catch you all soon.
All right, brother. Good day. Much love. And I will keep this going for about 10 or 15 minutes of explaining these stone circles here.
Sounds good. All right. Stay awesome, everyone. See ya.
Ta-ta. Love you. Blessings to your parents, Campbell. All right. We are at the 1 hour 50 minutes mark. So let us finish this awesome explanation of Michael Tellinger coming up about the stone circles and how the research and documentation of the crazy energy they've gotten coming out of it.
Of the sound frequency that comes out of the earth at that specific point. That's what this is all about. And some of these cymatic, like sand on a metal plate, but now these are stones, right? Some of the structures are actually very distinct magnetrons. And of those flower shapes, every time you see a flower-shaped stone circle, it means they actually built an ancient giant magnetron like this. Magnetrons that that can cut metal in a split second. And I asked two magnetron scientists, how much energy would a magnetron 40 meters in diameter generate? Remember that a tiny magnetron can create so much energy in a laser beam that cuts metal in a split second. I mean, it literally just melts the metal. And the answer was that a magnetron that size would create more energy than all the power plants on Earth together combined. One, we have thousands of these magnetrons in Southern Africa, thousands of them. So these guys are generating so much energy. It's insane. And we know this because we measured it. We measured the sound frequencies, the electromagnetic fields, the loudness in decibels. And it's just insane what's coming out of these stone circles. I'm not going to bore you with that because it's just, it's getting late. Adam's calendar is the most powerful of all these of these stone circles. Adam's calendar is actually much, much more powerful. It's as if they all seem to be sending their frequencies to Adam's calendar, and that's like the collection point for all this, the energies created by all these millions of stone circles. That's what it seems like. I can't say it is, but that's what it seems like, because the frequencies there were just ridiculous. Beyond 375 gigahertz coming out of Adam's calendar at the site. And electromagnetic fields that run horizontally and then vertically between the two stones in the middle. What we have at Adam's calendar is a very definite toroidal effect. And it's alive even today because we measured it. And that reminds us that the stones that ring like bells are what? They're just crystals. They're very, very high in crystalline substance. Very rich in quartz and silica. And remember, silica carries memory. Quartz carries memory. You can store virtually infinite amount of information and knowledge in quartz crystals. And this is why they don't put them in our computers, because that would make the computer industry obsolete. That you buy a computer once and never again. And that's what we're going to do in our Ubuntu communities, build bloody supercomputers. So, because we know how to make them. So when you look at ancient structures built out of stone, you realize that these guys knew exactly what they were doing. They understand that stone...
Sorry, just pausing it to state that magnetrons are what's used in lasers to focus and condense the different lights into the actual laser beam. So these would be sonic ones, quite intense.
Is the tool that carries with it, in it, information, storage capacity. It's an energy source. And that's why they used stone, not because they were stupid, because they were very, very smart. We're the dumb ones, but we're catching up quite quickly. So what's very obvious now is that all these ancient structures, from the pyramids, Borobudur, etc., are all ancient machines. They were giant machines built out of stone, crystalline substance, to create or to perform specific functions. It's just the function that we haven't figured out. What were they built for? What were they supposed to do? And this is why they are aligned with the movement of the sun, because we always amazed, look, this is aligned with the equinoxes and solstices and all this, and we think, because they worship the sun. Oh no, stupid. This is our stupid way of imagining that the ancients were stupid. They built this machine because the machine was aligned with the sun, because the sun is the activator of these machines. When the sunrise equinox over there and the first sun beams come down this passage and hit the standing stone, which is a crystal, you know that because all stones have crystal in them. So it's like hitting enter on your computer. Bing, it switches the machine on, and the machine does whatever function it's supposed to do until the sun moves over there, and then the beam comes to another passage, and then hits the sun, the light and the sound of the sun beams or sunlight hits another stone, and it makes the machine either stop whatever it was doing or perform some other function. And this is why they are aligned with the movement of the sun. So they work whether they're being operated or not. We don't have to sit there and wait and keep making it work. It works on its own. It's powered by the sound of the earth and activated by the movement of the sun. I mean, it's bloody brilliant. It's so simple. And now we're figuring this out. And we know that the energies are still there, because this is a photograph taken of the pyramids, and there's still huge energy coming out of the pyramids. Even the symmetrical patterns coming out of Stonehenge, although Stonehenge has been completely reconstructed, there's still very powerful symmetrical patterns coming out of Stonehenge that tells us that its original structure was very specifically created as a resonating device an energy device. And now we get to the very exciting Earth grid that seems to connect all these ancient sites on Earth. By now, you should know that this is a magnetic grid. It's not just ley lines or some fancy, it's actually very specific energetic patterns that are created by the resonance of the Earth and the magnetic fields that it creates. And the ancients seem to build all these ancient sites on these nodal points and very powerful points on these magnetic grids. And this is an ancient Sumerian text that actually tells us a lot of very important information. This is a real text that comes from the Shoyan collection. And it says, in the distant days, in those days after destinies had been decreed, after An and Enlil had set up regulations for heaven and earth. I mean, regulations for heaven and earth. And Enki, the exalted knowing God, by the rules for heaven and earth, the fixed rules, he set up cities. It seems to tell us that there was some sort of a fixed energy grid in the sky, heaven, and the fixed energy grid on the earth. And based on the energy field in the sky and the earth, they set up the cities on earth on these specific nodal points. And then David Wilcox several years ago discovered that the emblems of the Space Command and the Air Force and so forth in the USA refer to the rules. And they have these bands around the earth, these white bands with these little delta shapes on them. And they refer to those bands around the world as the rules. And they say there's some sort of energetic field around the world. They don't know where it comes from, but it's always been there. Some sort of energetic field up in the sky that this same Sumerian text seems to refer to. They built the cities according to this energetic grid. And here we have the same rules. Read there. It says, the fixed rules, by the rules for heaven and earth, the fixed rules, they set up the cities. And here we have the fixed rules in the sky on the military and Air Force logos. And my friend Paul Gravenstein in South Africa, who's a remarkable guy, but we don't have time for me to talk about him. He actually measured these rules or these energy grids in the sky. He phoned me out of the blue and he was freaking out. He said, I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know who else to tell, but I picked up this bloody energy grid that's up in the sky. It's just everywhere. It's like a matrix. It's like it consists out of ones and zeros. It's like a binary code, powerful energy field up in the sky. And he said he sent up a few energy beams with these devices to try and break it. He says it breaks it momentarily and it instantly reforms. You cannot destroy it. He says you can't break it. It's indestructible. And I just realized that all this ancient stuff that we're dealing with, just like I said, these ancient machines are just advanced technology on a gigantic scale. These obelisks in Egypt, they ring like bells. If you listen to them, they ring like bells, just like those stones in my museum. And when you go into these temples in Egypt, we told that they were built for this and offering. It's all nonsense, offering and praying. It's just too many pillars, not enough space. When you look at them from this angle, you realize that this is just something very different. And all those pillars clustered together, why would they build them like that? And then the more I looked at it, the more I realized, now inspired by realizing that the stone circles were powerful energy generating devices, suddenly seeing aerial photographs of these temples in Egypt, I realized that they weren't temples, but they were actually templates. That we're actually looking at gigantic energy circuit boards on a gigantic scale that we could never have imagined. It's just beyond our imagination. The scale that these guys were building things on is something way out of our perception because we just don't have enough money to do that. And macro processes, gigantic microprocessors become gigantic macro processes. And here we are told that these were places of worship, and then this is where the people lived. No, these are giant bloody macro processors, and that's part of the circuit board. It's what it is. And you can start seeing that the pyramids were the same thing, giant powerhouses, creating huge amounts of energy. And just, you start seeing things and recognizing how all this fits into ancient history. Sacsayhuaman is also just a giant circuit board. When you look at images from the air, you realize it's just a giant circuit board. It's not a fortress on top of a mountain to ward off marauding crowds and guys on horses and spears. No, it's a giant circuit board. And Borobudur in Indonesia, I mean, look at this. This is just insane. It's like just by looking at it, you see it actually resonating in front of your eyes. It's actually moves. And look at the top of Borobudur. That doesn't tell you that these are energy generating devices shooting stuff into the sky. So all of these ancient temples and structures somehow were built, or many of them, to generate energy and shoot it up into the sky. So it seems like these are the devices that seem to keep this energy grid up in the sky. And possibly this is a matrix that keeps us enslaved and dumbed down and unaware of what's going on outside of our own planet. What is actually out there? What are we looking at when we look up at the sky? As I said, I no longer believe anything that NASA shows me. And it seems that the human sound was actually the source of the energy that holds up the matrix in the sky. Because you find these beautiful amphitheaters attached to what used to be these circuit boards. So they get a bunch of people into these amphitheaters, get them excited, they make a lot of noise, and they channel that sound into the circuit board. It activates the machine and it starts to make a noise or whatever and shoots the energy up into the sky, upholds the matrix. There's beautiful amphitheater, beautiful resonating pillar of a row of pillars that used to feed into the circuit board. And so it goes. There's another one. The circuit board was on top of the mountain, and the source code for it was the amphitheater on the side. Here's another amphitheater right in the middle of a circuit board. This is in Algeria, North Africa. And since 2015, this shows you, I should update this. Nothing has changed in 2017. The templates and temples have just become churches. And if you look at the tops of churches and mosques, they just have cones, these cones that face the sky, that capture the sound and the energy of the people in the church. Look at those cones facing the sky. It's just spectacular. Capture the sound and the energy of the singing and the clapping and the fear and the anxiety, and especially these ones here. This is the mother of them all. And then business centers and cities, they're just designed to channel all the sound and energy up into the sky. Somehow nothing has changed. We seem to continue putting all this energy, the city grids are like giant circuit boards, generating huge amounts of noise, huge amounts of energy, and strangely enough, all being connected by these channels called highways that never stop making a noise, just like the stone circles. We never stop making a noise. And now I understand what Morpheus meant when he said that people are the source of energy. It makes a whole different kind of sense to me now. For whom and why, I don't quite know. But it seems that we're the energy source that keeps this matrix or this energy field around our planet or up in the sky. And that brings me back to the deception that's been woven for us over thousands of years, and especially the last few hundred years. And this whole thing of gravity and the reality that we find ourselves in. You know, Isaac Newton had almost no knowledge of magneticism. He actually mentions that he didn't understand it, and therefore he didn't write about it. If he only understood magneticism, he would not have come up with the crap that has been shoved down our throats. Gravity doesn't exist. It's all an aspect of magneticism. But you can't say this at any institution. We observe it, we can't explain it. It's called gravity. It just holds everything together. And it's there to support some very, very important philosophies that have been shoved down our throats about the world that we find ourselves in. In fact, Coulomb describes gravity as an electric phenomenon. And it's very eloquently explained and very easily explains all the activities around us, especially supporting the whole toroidal structure of our reality. Gravity is much easier explained and explains all aspects of our reality through magneticism and not through this invisible, undefinable thing called gravity. Sound creates magnetic fields. Moving magnetic fields create electricity. Everything's affected by magneticism, sound, and resonance. And therefore, gravity is a consequence of sound and magneticism. And this is why it should be called the magneto-electric universe and not the electromagnetic universe. Even the precessional wobble of our planet. Remember, we talk about the precession of the equinoxes, this 26,000-year wobble. Even that can be explained with magneticism, because magnetic fields have their own precessional wobble, like is explained here. It's spectacular how suddenly everything changes in our reality. And we can start looking at the world we find ourselves in very, very differently. In 1887, there was a very important experiment that was performed, and I'm almost finished here, people. So you can just relax. This is the home run. This just blows my mind. Okay, and in 1887, these two brilliant scientists, and they were pretty much pushed out of our knowledge pool, out of our psyche. Michelson Morley performed what became a very important experiment, because until then, all scientists throughout the ages were obsessed with the ether. It was called the ether. The ether, the breath of creation, what holds everything together, what holds creation together, what holds the planets in place, and so forth. And it was called the ether. And they were obsessed with the ether, and they couldn't quite understand what the ether was. They had all kinds of definitions for it. If only they understood that it was vibration and resonance. That's really what they were describing, was the ether, is vibration and resonance, the breath of the creator that holds everything in perfect harmony and coherent, resonant harmony. So Michelson-Morley experiment was performed to prove the existence of the ether. And they wanted to prove that the earth moves through the ether. Well, they did two very important things. First of all, they couldn't find the ether. They couldn't prove that the ether existed. And they did this with sending out light beams in perpendicular directions, and they were measuring the movement of the light bouncing back, and they found there was no movement. I'm giving it to you very, very basic English, so it's easy to understand. You can go and research this yourself. And what came back is that there was no movement, there was no deflection, nothing. So the conclusion was that the earth is not moving through space. Therefore, the ether does not exist. So I'm not worried about the ether too much, because by now we understand that it's resonance and sound. But the most important thing that they showed is that the earth does not move through space. And as we sit here in this room right now today, there is no scientific evidence whatsoever that has been proven beyond any shadow of doubt, other than the evidence that we've been shown by NASA or the other space agencies. By now we know who they are and who controls them. There's no scientific evidence that the earth actually moves through space. I told you I'm going to push you beyond some of our capacity, break down the walls of our own resistance. This has really shocked me, and I no longer believe anything. Even Mika Koku says, Michio Kaku, says that there is no scientific evidence presented today that tells us unequivocally that the earth moves through space. What the hell is this all about? What it does tell us that ether has been replaced by the particle physics universe. And we can start seeing the agenda that was put in place a few hundred years ago, starting with the concept of gravity that replaces magneticism. Then we start seeing the discovery of the electron in 1897, where J.J. Thomson discovers the theoretical particle, the electron. Never proven to exist, but the theoretical particle suddenly becomes a reality. And a few years later, let me remind you, do you see anything physical in the picture of the electron? No. And this is why people like Nikola Tesla and Ed Leeds-Kalnin's comments, and even Albert Einstein and many others about the electron and that whole agenda of replacing the ether of creation with particle physics. Particle physics very quickly replaces the ether, because that's something they didn't want to get us sucked into. And suddenly Rutherford comes with his atomic model in 1909, 1911, and we are still stuck with the same bloody bullshit atomic model that was presented by Rutherford. And that, quite frankly, if you go and look at that experiment, that atomic model experiment, I'm sorry, I read it, I've looked at that over and over again. It is so naive, it is so stupid. And it can be so quickly and easily explained with magnetic fields. Everything that Rutherford experienced and reported on with his experiment could be very simply explained with magnetic fields and toroidal fields. And then by the time Einstein released his theory of relativity, that was the final death knell in the ether, or the theory of the ether, or as we call resonance and frequency. What's even more interesting and important is that the many experiments that have been done with the cosmic background radiation over the years have brought back some very, very interesting results. And Max Tegmark from MIT, in The Principle, I don't know if you've seen the documentary called The Principle, very clearly tells us, and he's the guy that drove that experiment, they found that from our perspective, the Earth is the center of all of creation. This is not popular in mainstream science. And yet this is what the most mainstream science results are telling us. That from our perspective, the Earth is the center of the universe. Not only that all the other observable galaxies and solar systems seem to exist in layers moving away from Earth as the center of the universe. Do with this information what you want. What I'm going to bring you back to is that everything is connected through a fractal nature of resonance that creates magnetic fields and toroidal fractals throughout all of creation. The atomic models, the quantum theory, all of that stuff can be very easily explained with the stuff that I shared with you, with sound, resonance, and magneticism. What happens is that the more questions we ask about this, the more mysterious are the things we find. And this is why I call this presentation Exploring the Nature of Our Reality and really pushing the boundaries of our own capacity to tolerate new information. Because this certainly has shaken my reality, and I no longer believe anything I'm told by any university professor anywhere, because they're all lying. And yet, Max Tegmark gave us some very interesting information. What we do with it is what matters most. What do we do with all this knowledge? Because we can't affect what happened in the past, but we certainly can affect tomorrow morning when we wake up and we enter the world and we share our knowledge and information with others. And this is why I believe that we're the ones we've been waiting for, and we are co-creating a new reality. Now that you know how powerful your thoughts are, how powerful every word you write, powerful every message you leave for somebody on your cell phone, how every email you send, how powerful all your communication and all your thoughts are, you realize how quickly we can co-create a new reality for ourselves. Because all of this positive stuff, the positive thinking, the positive talking, the positive co-creation of a new reality for humanity that is filled with prosperity and abundance is right here. We are creating it as we speak it and as we think it. No one can stop that. It's up to us. And the more people say it, think it, speak it, imagine it, the quicker we are going to create it. And we are more enslaved now than we've ever been before. But with this enslavement comes the absolute understanding of how important it is to liberate ourselves from this enslavement. And it'll require a whole new kind of thinking, because we cannot solve the problems that were created for us with the same kind of thinking that created the problems. So our system is broken. It cannot be fixed. We need a whole new kind of system to get out of this mess. We've been born into the slavery. We now understand it. We've grappled with it. It's okay. The fact that we get it, we understand it, we can now do something about it. And remember,
Hey, my name's Bob Grenier, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So in this presentation, I wanted to decode the last part of the picture that Nikola Tesla, in my view, clearly staged when he was promoting his weapon to end all wars in approximately 19. Hey, my name's Bob Grenier, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So in this presentation, I wanted to decode the last part of the picture that Nikola Tesla, in my view, clearly
of March 2023. That should probably read the 19th of March. Across the center and with the leaders here offset, but feeding across the main.
Sorry about that. I posted the full link in the live chat for the Michael Tellinger. I was just trying to play some of Bob Grenier's most recent work with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. Absolutely great stuff where he's been decoding the geopolymer of the Great Pyramids of Giza and proving without a shadow of a doubt that it is both geopolymer as well as tens of thousands of years old, and putting the science behind it and connecting the respectable real science community with actual real archaeology and discovery around the world. I'm going to play a couple minutes of it, and then I will post the link, and we will cut this off at 2 hours and 20 minutes here. Thank you, everybody, for being here today for the stream, and hope you're all having a blessed day and week. On that note, here's a few more minutes of Bob Grenier.
Main axis here is two vortices, but at 90 degrees to these vortices. And I just thought, probably, that the stonemasons might be good enough, reasonably, to create some quite complex pieces of stonework. Okay? All right? So I'm just putting it out there because when you see these things, you have to recognize them for what they are. And the other thing is I've got a lot of beautiful images that we can use, and they will be publicly available. This island was trading with Egypt, and at one point they were handed a stele. I actually have the image on my phone, and I don't have it available to share, but I'll share it on the blog afterwards. Actually, it's one of the other photos I took. But anyway, it's a stele, much like the one of the Assyrian god, where you've got the headdress of the sky gods and the flying disc of the sky gods, and then the kind of like tuning fork type thing, and it goes down. But it's also got the classic disc with the two wings and the tail. Again, another representation of this so-called flying disc. And this stele, the cuneiform on the side, it's in apparently a German museum, and they have a clone in Larnaca in the museum I went into. And what it is, it's basically a thank you note from the Assyrian king for the however many it was, the 7 or 12 or 13 or something kings of Cyprus, pledging their allegiance to Samaria or to the Assyrian lands or something. If that's the case, then there was a deep ties between these nations. So it's not just that they had war for and with the pyramid. It was over the pyramid, and it was using the pyramid. Apparently, this is according to Sitchin's translation. And literally, he says, in those slots where I'm in the pyramid, I'm going, something's been taken from there. And I took that video and I shared that with you a couple of presentations ago. Apparently, there is an argument that something has been removed from there. And so what happened, according to Sitchin's translation of the cuneiform, was after this battle, they went in and they took stock of what was in the pyramid, and they literally disassembled parts of it. So my theory that it was literally sabotaged, it actually would appear to have a historical document that supports this hypothesis. Okay, so this is all news to me, and so there we go. That's what it said. And yeah, so apparently apparently there were other things removed, and I actually have images in the antechamber video pictures that I took where it looked a bit like something was stripped out of there. I don't know, but I can definitely say it looked a bit sus that there was something in that chamber, and it was in the grand gallery. And when I started overlaying the sacred geometry as derived from the actual Lena research, it pointed to this slot being absolutely in the exact perfect place for the sort of golden ratio spiral to be excited. And that's as it was. The other thing is that he talks about the primal matter. Now, my argument is that the hydrogen is split into the three things: the protons, the electrons, and this dark matter, which Shishkin says is condensed torus of the coherent matter layer. It can't go in through here. Okay, so it might be that you never need to pour water down here for it to operate. But I would rather that you had control over that. And when I look at the images that I shared subsequently, it may actually be that the device is to a degree converting the material down here into protons to a degree. I don't know. And this needs to be investigated further. But what I'm saying is that any water extra you put down here after this coherent matter layer that's forming this, it would be, in my view, extremely intense when it's operating properly. Would not be able to go through the coherent matter layer. It would just either boil or disassociate on this boundary here. In fact, if you were to come down here, you would either boil or dissociate. And why the way that I think potentially the disassociation is going on, let's say we have some water here in the well, whether it's coming up through groundwater or whether it's actually put in here deliberately, it comes down to the proton in the water having spin. Okay, the oxygen in the water doesn't have spin, but this distortion, this disruption beam is so intense that it is literally ripping the proton out of there, leaving the oxygen nowhere to go except to also be disassociated. So you end up with disassociating the water in a non-thermal, and I've also seen it in a experiment by Alexander Parkhomov that produced excess heat over the course of 225 days, more than 2.14, I think it was, megaelectron volts per nickel atom, although, as I've argued, I think much of that came from not the nickel, but other interactions going on. Okay, so I have to flip the pyramid here because of the way this is working. This is the material here goes into the wormhole and out here. So you're looking at the back side of the action inside the pyramid. So I flip this, and this isn't the correct structure here. It's an approximation in the artwork of Wikipedia. There's a better approximation by Petri, and I have Petri's book, and we'll look at some aspects in there in a little while. But it is this particular shape. So the thing is, what happened with the Parkhomov 225-day reactor, and we'll see this in a little while, is that in that experiment there were two samples. So basically, Alexander Parkhomov, Dr. Alexander Parkhomov, he did this experiment, and he shared parts of the reactor with, I think, 9 different labs, of which or organizations, and the MFMP was one of those. And I had the pleasure of looking at those in Alan Goldwater's at least for the vortex and anti-vortex, these structures, the vortex and anti-vortex, we've seen it so many times from this neon light glancing across the top of the surface. And what is it? I'm going to go there. It is an alpha. Okay, it's an alpha, and I grant it, it's actually quite nicely carved in there. Now, this, I can't remember the name of the person. For some reason, he thinks there's an omega here, right? I don't see it. I see a lot of other stuff that looks a bit damaged along here. But this looks nicely carved into what was the flat surface. Arguably, this could have been done at another time. But I think it probably would have been, you know, I don't know. Anyway, whoever it was thought that they were seeing something new, and there it is. I don't see the omega. The alpha makes sense to me. The alpha makes sense to me. Why does it make sense to me? Well, because if we go back to our previous O-Day presentations and we go to the circle of life here, okay, we have, as you know, the alpha and the omega. And the alpha, i.e. kind of like new life or new material, begins at the end of death. Okay, so once you have destroyed your material in your breaker and it goes all the way through your pyramid or all the way through the ether stream and gets to the point of being born again, okay, over here, then that is where you have your alpha. Okay, so as I showed in the Coptic art here, you have your alpha and omega here with your breaker and your maker or whatever. So I'm therefore arguing that I agree that this is an alpha, and I could accept that you know, whatever was coming in here was being born again, whether that be matter or something else. You take your pick. But this, I believe.
So Bob is extremely technical, so you can tell that this is real, actual science. He's just going over explaining his discoveries and verification that there was transmutations of elements, actual nuclear reactions going on within this structure through the tests that he's currently doing on it with his equipment. I'm just going to play one more section of this, and then we will call her a day, and love you all, and we'll catch you on the next one. But one last bit here.
Is alpha. And so there we go. This is the beginning. So it would be coming in theory, if this was correctly in the place, the point at which the end of death is occurring is literally at this point. Literally at this point. Or of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And if you look at this, you can imagine that you could get a pretty tight seal between here and here, and it just under its own gravity does the seal, and then all you would need, I mean, is you could probably put chicken fat or something, I don't know, on the boundary there, and it would do the seal, and it would just be under gravity. Okay, so you know, quite a wonderful piece of engineering, really. A little bit more issue on the side. It depends whether the door was actually like a wedge shape. If it was a wedge shape and it went into a wedge shaped socket on the sides, then one can imagine that also that would seal. So, but it might be sufficient, depending on the production rate of gases, to, you know, have that you know, sealing better, but it may not be necessary depending on the rate of the production of gases. Okay. Okay, so the thing that I'd like to draw your attention to here, and this is in the 2017 paper in Nature about the first void being discovered, the second new void being discovered above the Grand Gallery. Okay, and here is their image here of the location of the various elements in the pyramid. And so you can see the center line here. The actual line of the Grand Gallery is a little bit off the center. It's a little bit off the center. Okay. And I believe that that is correct. And we know that these things align themselves not in a straight line, as it were. And I'll give you a little bit of random kind of a correlation for that. One is the fact that we know these yin-yang structures. Okay. One is a cone with a pit in it, and one is a pit with a cone in it, right? So this is the breaker. This is the breaker on this side. This is the same as we would imagine is going on this side of the pyramid. It's this is the breaker here, okay? So it's on this side. So this would need to be above this one, if you know what I mean, if we're looking into the page. So therefore, if you're looking at the plan view of the pyramid, then this one is above. And I think, it's more to the east, okay? This is more to the east. This one would be, and you don't need to see it, but it would be more to the west, okay? And therefore, where it dumps the material would be to the west. And that would, for me, explain why the King's Chamber extends into the west under my hypothesis. Okay, so and yeah, that's the different paper there. Okay, so they have some other nice details in this paper. So this, of course, this is the first paper. So at this point, by using their muon technology, they had it in these potential places, but they've said it can be lower and it can also be down, or it can be flat or whatever. But I'm arguing that the position is in a way that it can feed into the upper part of the structure that it needs to feed into. If we go into here, and we go here, and we need our n-1s, and we will go to pyramid inside. So it needs to have the chamber feed. It needs to be above here, and it probably is a mirror image of the Grand Gallery. And it would need to feed the hydrogen into the top n-2 tour. Okay, so in here. Yeah. And so that's where I predict they will eventually find it is. Where am I going now? Okay. So the interesting thing is, it is literally, this is the elevation, looking at it from, I guess, it could be north or south, I guess. This is east-west. So you're looking at it from the south, I guess, through. But you can see this new chamber is directly above, okay? And here it is from south to north, and east to west. So you can see that the new chamber is literally exactly in line, okay? It's exactly in line, which is exactly where it would need to be feeding the sacred geometry structure, okay? All right. So with those two elevations, so this is a plan, and this is a different elevation to the one that we've been looking at. We've been looking at the south-north elevation, not the east-west elevation, and we have not looked at the plan. But the plan makes sense for the logic of what we are doing. The other part is that it's in and out. So we see it's in and out in the actual how it plays out.
All right, sorry, paused it there. I'm going to be ending it on Autodidactic channel and my Crypto Alchemist channel, as well as on Facebooks and Twitter. But I'm going to keep it live on the link that I just posted in the live chat here on my Burneye Smallers channel. So please do head over and subscribe to all channels, whether you're on Crypto Alchemist, Burneye, or Autodidactic, to Autodidactic, Burneye, and my Crypto Alchemist #2 channel. Love you all. Thank you for joining in. This right here is monoatomic gold that was mixed with, it was the pure white monoatomic gold that I then mixed with some crystalline nano gold, and that is why it actually still has the gold color along with it. And it's being, that was the 4th rinse where I dumped the top rinse water out, the very strong colloidal waters that many recommend using for baths and stuff. But anywho, I keep it, I use it for other purposes, but I'm rinsing the salt out, rinsing the toxins out, and you can see how this metamaterial monatomic gold fully fluffs up and then settles down into its small, more condensed, fluffy state, and then produces the colloidal water. And I will also be updating and consuming a very small amount of this actual monatomic gold and giving you my self guinea pig results of consuming some of this golden monoatomic material. Possible meta material, possible positive side effects, hopefully not negative. Hopefully I don't poison myself. Hopefully I don't give myself heavy metal poisonings and do harm. And that is why you should not try this at home, especially if you don't know what you're doing, as it can be just as harmful, if not more harmful than positive, if you're taking the wrong stuff. If it oxidizes, turns diatomic, hydroxides, the rest, that's how you get heavy metal poisoning and die and do extreme damage to yourself. It's no joking matter. But inversely, it seems the opposite is effect of the good monoatomic. Not making any claims. Thank you, YouTube. Love you all. For those that want to continue watching Bob Greenyer's full stream on its own, here's the link one more time, and some bonus material here over on my Burneye Mind's Third Eye Science Guy channel that we will keep this live going on for a little longer, which is now coming in all the live chats right here. Subscriptions, always, please subscribe, please like, please share these materials out. It's crucial for all and getting the word out. And let's see here. You can, also, all of everything that's played tonight is on my backup Twitter channel. I've got a recent episode on alchemy with Benjamin Balderson, Odin's Alchemy, very awesome as well. And we're going to be going for the bonus, still live on my channel, the Ode Decoding of Tesla's flower and these other ancient occultic symbols that Bob Greenyer shows are actually energetic, high energy, high technology symbology and usage, and goes through in-depthly decoding both Tesla's work and the ancients, and you don't want to miss it. So come over to the Burneye channel where it will still be playing. I love you all. We'll catch you on the next one. If you're not continuing on, if you are continuing on, see you on the Burneye channel. One last time, right here. Please do come subscribe. All donations to keep this work going is greatly appreciated. We are funded and supported by all of you beautiful souls. And for those that can only afford a like, share, and watch, thank you for your support, all of you. We love you. We do it for you. Have a good night. Thank you. And like I said, still live on Burn Eye, ending on the rest. Catch you on the next one.